When we came to the U.S., first of all, this man, Henry Katz, was, I told you that my father had a Bible from his grandmother, so it goes way back. And he wrote to all the family members that had left Germany for other lands. And Henry Katz was the one person who responded to that, to my father's plea. And he was a very, very distant cousin. And he responded to my dad that he would help us come to America, and he did. So now we're in America, fast forward. We're living there for maybe a week or two, that's all. Now, his wife worked at the Mifflin School, which was like a grade school in Germantown. And she happened to be a kindergarten teacher. She told my mother that the best thing for this refugee, she called me a little refugee kid, was to go to school. Now remember, at that point, I think I'm already 9. I have a severe eye infection, not the eye, the rim of the eye. I'm very skinny because there wasn't enough food in Holland. Most important, I don't know one word of English. I'm speaking German. So she takes me to the school, to the Mifflin School. And I can still recall I was surrounded by a whole group of kids. And it seemed to me that they're all screaming hello or something. I didn't have a clue as to what the kids were saying. And then, I don't know who, but somebody decided I should be put in 3rd grade. Why? I'm 9 years old. I'm supposed to be in 3rd grade. But you'll recall my story that I was thrown out of 1st grade. So I never completed 1st grade. Of course, I didn't have 2nd grade. So now I'm in 3rd grade. So for the entire 3rd and 4th grade, I sat in the last row, in the last seat, and somebody in front of me would hand me like a piece of paper. And I would send back an empty paper. I didn't even know how to write my name. And amazingly, I got a report card like everybody else. And I don't know what it is today, but U is unsatisfactory. S is satisfactory. Believe it or not, I got an S in every subject. My mother, who is trying with my dad to make a living, remember, no help from the federal, state, city government. Everything, whatever dad earned is what we lived on, and mom. So they're exceedingly busy, and also, in addition to all that, they're concerned because they have family in Germany, and they're trying to see to get them out, and they're not able to get them out. So they have that in addition. So my mother gets my report card, which she signs, so she's assuming that I'm doing okay. I could correct her, but I understood they kept talking about my cousin Helga. I understood that they're trying to get Helga out of Germany, and I thought of the 2 problems, mine, no friends, no school, and hers, trying to get her into a safe country. So I never shared my problems in school with my parents. So I had no friends. Why? Some of them came over and tried to talk, but I couldn't respond. So after a while, they just left me alone. In addition, there were no lunch programs then. So while everybody had like a lunch break, I didn't because I had no lunch. So I used to walk in the schoolyard, back until the class started again. That was the most miserable time in my whole life, because as I'm getting older, I'm getting a little smarter and recognizing problems a little more, Luckily for me, after I graduated 4th grade, Dad had saved and borrowed a little bit of money. He started a small store, a ladies' apparel shop, small. This is what he did in Germany, so he was very familiar with fabrics and all that kind of stuff. So in order to the store, we had to move to Feltonville. I go to Feltonville, and now I'm graduating. I left 3rd grade. They put me into 4th grade. 4th grade, I was ready to go into 5th grade. So I go into Clara Barton, also a grade school, in Feltonville. And I'm starting 5th grade. Remember, I'm doing nothing in 3rd and 4th. But they don't know. This is a new school. Mm-hmm. And for the first time, a teacher actually takes an interest in me. So this teacher, whom at the time I hated, made me stay after school and do homework and my work. She helped me when I had a problem. in retrospect, I understand she gave of her free time. She wasn't getting paid for this on my behalf. I didn't like it because I didn't want to stay after school. I finally understood that it's to my own benefit to do some work, to actually study, because I didn't know what that word meant, study. And I began to study because I did not want to remain in school after school. So I did my homework and I started studying, and I actually began to actually enjoy it. She not only did that for me, but she did something else. She took me across the street. There was a library free. I didn't have a clue about libraries. She took me to the library and gave me, or got for me, some kind of a card that I could get out books. And to me, that opened up a whole new world. And there was one summer I did nothing but stay in the library and read. And that's how I really learned English, by reading. Because I became, to this day, if I want to relax, other people, everybody does something different. I have a good friend, Dottie, who likes to knit. But I read. To me, that's the biggest pleasure. I read. I don't think there's a cheaper, better pleasure than just reading a book. I mean, it can take you wherever you want to go. So that's when I began to learn about America. I hadn't a clue as to what had happened to me. As a teenager, I read a book called While 6 Million Died by Arthur Morse. And I'm learning, FDR didn't let the Jews in. We were on a ship called the St. Louis. And I'm beginning to research and realize, because my parents never spoke about this. But before I read that book, I didn't even have an interest. I didn't think, I didn't think back to, oh my goodness, I was on the ship, and then I went to Holland. Why did they put me in the detention camp? I didn't think about these things. I'm thinking instead, oh, that's a cute guy over there. Or, I don't like this girl.
What grade were you in, or how old were you when you met your husband, and how did you guys meet?
Oh, I wasn't out in high school there. I was a high school kid at the time I met him. We met, that was a little strange. He actually comes from Elma, New Jersey. So I had a very best friend at that point. I had a lot of best friends. Her name was Gloria. And Gloria and I were looking for new guys. And Gloria told me her sister was very popular. She was about 4 years older, and she got married and had this little, believe it or not, book, a little red book or black book, with guys' names in it that she went out with or that she knew. So I gave her the go-ahead, Gloria, to call them. So he got this phone call, like the others did, and he told me later that he thought it was a crazy idea to go to this girl's party, somebody he didn't know, and he said no right away. Then, a week before the party, he gets a phone call from his sister. She's in New York, and she calls him and says, I want to come to Philly next weekend. Do you have somewhere for us to go? Do you have a party or something for us to go? And then he remembered that he had that invitation to a party that he wasn't going to go to, and he thought, well, let me call them because my sister wants to come, and how bad can it be? So he called back, and I remember Gloria telling me, this crazy guy, believe it or not, called us back. And you know what he said? And I said, what? Can he bring his sister? And I said, that's weird. and then I said, okay, tell him okay. And he came only, he told me later, because his sister wanted to go to a place that she would have a good time in. So he was one of the guys that came too. And what we did was invite more guys and girls. We had a few girls, but we invited more guys. Mm-hmm. So he asked me out right away. He was older than us, and he was particularly older because he'd spent a couple of years in Korea. He wanted to fight the Nazis. So he, without his parents' permission, at 17, enlisted. But what did they do? They sent him to the Pacific. So he was a tanker, I think, at one point, a medic at another. When I met my husband, I was just a kid. I didn't have a clue that he was German Jew. And it wasn't, we were going together for quite a while, when one day he came to my house, and I was supposed to get ready, and I was a little delayed. So he's walking around the living room, and he starts, my mother had a library with German books, because it was much easier for her to read a German book. So he looks and he sees the German books and says, what the heck do they have German books? So when I came out, I said to him, why do you have German books?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, it's because we're from Germany. And he said, oh, we are too.
How many children did you have?
I have one son, David. I had two sons. Robert, my oldest son, he unfortunately at 49 got a fatal heart attack. And then I had a daughter, Cheryl, my second child, and she unfortunately developed cancer at the age of 8. She died at much, much, much too young. And then Charlotte, she's the one that lives in Teaneck, New Jersey. And then my youngest, Deborah, who is the one that lives the closest in Lafayette Hills. So I have good kids, actually. They've been very supportive.
What is one of your most meaningful memories from the long time that you spent in the U.S.?
I remember when I got a prestigious award from Israel Bonds, and my son, how old was he then? He was about 9 or 10, something like that. He came up to stage, which was so amazing to me, because my kids aren't usually like that, with a whole big thing of roses, which of course my husband had paid for. That he came up, and that, I remember that as really sweet. And he gave me this big, he was a real cute kid, and he gave me this big grin, as only a 10-year-old can. But I think my story was really due to hate. It was really what can happen if hate can just be left alone to grow. Because there just weren't enough people to stop and listen and try to change things. And my whole thing on the Holocaust is, my hope was that if people learn about the Holocaust, they'll see it doesn't happen again. That's the whole point. It's not just telling a story. The point is it shouldn't repeat itself, because a lot of people are going to suffer through that, and it's not necessary. So my hope was that wisdom, understanding, would keep it from rehappening.